afternoon from the Second Age of Reason. We're out on a bike today, and I'm going to talk about the proposed law called the Journalist Shield Law, which is supposed to shield journalists from government intrusion or abuses of their First Amendment rights. So, first of all, I'm going to say that I consider myself a journalist, although I may not fall under their definition of journalism, because I think they want you to be part of a state-approved journalism enterprise, which is to say, nothing is more Orwellian than that. But of course it's coming from Senator Feinstein, which I think is one of the most Orwellian representatives of any empire has ever fielded. But it's supposed to shield journalists. In effect, it leaves a whole lot of journalists wide open to abuse and spells it out particularly. So I register my disapproval of the law, especially because it's the opposite of what it claims to be, a shield for journalists. I think the Constitution is sufficient shielding. The freedom of the press in the First Amendment takes care of journalists who are with an enterprise. The freedom of speech takes care of journalists who are independent, bloggers, and whatever. And I think groups such as WikiLeaks or others that field what you call leakers, whistleblowers, are also considered under First Amendment. Don't forget the First Amendment also includes freedom of religion. The First Amendment also includes freedom of religion, separation of church and state, and freedom to peaceably assemble, which I think this law also claims to give security to people claiming First Amendment rights, which we know Senator Feinstein regards as privileges and not rights. So, I think there's a great danger here. So, what shall we do about it? The key is the separation of church and state. I think the rules are similar. It's a separation amendment. The First Amendment has a key. The key is freedom of religion, or the separation of church and state, which to me tells me that the First Amendment is more about separation than it is about protecting your right or your freedom. The separation of church and state is part of it. So one could reasonably say we want to have a separation of the individual and state, separation, individual speech and state, and separation of press and state. That keeps us from being totally a propaganda mechanism. Separation of assembly and state. People should not require permits to assemble. If you need a state permit to assemble, your First Amendment rights are being violated. I think that's pretty clear from the context of that amendment. So, I think it needs to be defended on that ground. Oh, a farm! Nice scenic little bike ride. Well, until later, that's all I had to say for today. We'll be seeing you. This has been the Second Age of Reason. Bye-bye.